simply continuing the effort to try to educate myself and my viewers on what my thoughts are on this whole crisis in South Africa. I'm coming across some very uh, well thought out think pieces, if you will. People commenting back where they think there are some contradictions, as is in this episode tonight. We're going to go over another reaction from comments I've made on my thoughts on the xenophobic actions in South Africa and how those parallels with the United States policy towards immigration are the same. Seems to be some question whether or not I am contradicting myself, so I'm going to make it clear right here, right now, on the Ujamaa Network. Let's get to it. Before jumping into this discussion tonight, I'm going to make it very clear that honest discussion, intellectual discussion is always going to be welcome here on this channel. But what's not going to be welcome is some other comments that I'm not even going to delete, um, where you're engaging in name calling, questioning somebody's intelligence, making little snide comments. We're not doing that. And I will not use my platform to downgrade you on whatever subject we may agree or disagree on. So, to those engaging in that kind of nonsense, um, just know I'm aware. I'm just choosing peace and not airing you out to about 20,000 subscribers here, or the few thousands I have on other channels. So let's just go ahead and keep it PG, and let's get into today's topic, which I thought was very good. And this comes in from Inonge Kabele. I believe I'm pronouncing the name correctly. And it was a well thought out piece, but I want to go through each of the instances where, again, I'm not taking offense. If there was some question of ambiguity in any of my stances, I'm here to set the record straight and go a little bit further. So let's get started. I believe tone and texture is important whenever you're reading somebody's comments. So I'm going to read this as I see it without any emotional attachment to it. I'm just going to go ahead and go through it. So, Enoge writes, I listened carefully to what you said, and I feel you contradict yourself, and I cannot really know where you stand. On the one hand, you acknowledge the natural consequences of policy decisions. On the other hand, you remain loyal to the democratic globalist policy decisions that have created the crisis in the US and South Africa and other African countries. Additionally, the specific crises you mention are real events that have real effects on the people involved. Overburdened public institutions taking care of illegal migrants is not a myth. Drug and human trafficking are not myths. Displacement is not a myth. Why treat them as such? What is your agenda? At the end, you say Operation Dadula is following the agenda of the 2025 playbook. That's Project 2025 here in the United States. But Black South Africans have been resisting mass illegal immigration for decades now, asking the government for protection with no action until recently, and sporadic violence. Operation Dadula and March and March are trying to avoid civil war and literally begging the government to take action before it comes to that. And Onge was responding to the video I put out on the similarities between Operation Dadula and Project 2025. There were 5 points I went over directly, and I'm going to probably talk about them here, but I just want to make it very, very clear that I stand by what I said, and if it sounds ambiguous, maybe it's because there's a perspective that I have that you may not agree with or you may not share, or it could be that you just um, maybe don't understand where I'm coming from. So let's get some clarity going in here. First and foremost, um, the first was South Africa first, America first. There is no ambiguity there. Nations have the right to put their citizens first. Not only the right, they have an obligation to do so. Whenever the citizens are crying out for something, that is what it is. There is no ambiguity about that. In order for us to maintain the society that we have, whether you're in South Africa or the United States, you have to take care of the people at home before you can offer aid to people who want to make it their home. So there's no ambiguity there. And the second is where I believe we start getting into some gray areas. So I'm going to be very clear. It was strict immigration policies, okay? Particularly securing the border and deporting illegal immigrants, faster deportations of illegal immigrants. So let me be clear, whether it's the United States or South Africa, people just don't have the right to roll up in your country and claim rights or privileges or accommodations just because they're there. Those accommodations come at a cost, and we must be very cognizant of the people who are paying taxes in there. Now, it's not really my place to set the tone for who's going in here. And this is where the first difference comes in. I do not believe, when they're talking about South Africa, that citizens have the right to accost, beat, question, detain somebody based on the premise that I think you look like you're from another place. And even if you are, what gives you the right to come at me? Call the police. And if the police are not doing their job, that's who your beef is with. No ambiguity. Keep your hands to yourself. Now, as it turns out, in the United States, we got a different problem. We got police officers who are detaining who they believe are illegal immigrants, shuffling them off to concentration camps, which are what we call detention centers, not notifying any legal authorities, not notifying a family. They're snatching people off the street, only to find out, like in the Abrego Garcia case, this is an American citizen. You just abducted a citizen of your country and put him in a detention center in a faraway country without due process. These are the fine lines, and we're not talking about um, differences of opinion. These are facts. These are things that are happening, and you have to be aware of what your government is doing. In South Africa, the government has an obligation to uphold those laws. In America, the government has an obligation to uphold the laws, not break them. And when it comes to faster deportations, absolutely, I'm in agreement with that. But I'm only making sure that we are targeting those who are coming into this country or into South Africa with the intent purpose of staying under the radar, staying off the books. You are illegal. You don't need to be here. The immigration process in the United States, for once, is a lengthy process, and it involves being able to contribute to the country and doing your part and paying your fair share. What I feel is happening in both South Africa and the United States, there are people who are paying their fair share and still being accosted. And because the government is not doing what it's supposed to do, people are taking the law into their own hands. So, unambiguously, illegal immigrants just need to go. Just need to go. Now, here's the thing: if you can't make them go, you do not engage in mob violence to get them out of your country. That's a failure of your government. That's who your beef is with. And I don't think I can make it any clearer than that. I also believe, I'm going to take it a step further. If you are a legal resident right now in South Africa, I'm looking around and I'm seeing the sentiment. Do I really want to be in a country where I'm being judged by what I look like because I may not look South African enough? to be here without being accosted by somebody, maybe it's time for me to go. Now, in America, it's a bit different. We were built on this notion of great melting pot, right? That's what we were told, us Gen Xers. And what does an American actually look like? Well, our particular immigration policy is tied to race, not nationalism. And so, with that being said, the racial majority has always made it so that one class of citizen will have some benefits that the other class won't. When you're basing your deportation policy on the color of someone's skin or the way they look, that's a problem. That is a problem. You do your due process and you make sure that you are, number one, targeting illegal immigrants, and you do your due process and make sure your policies in place do not allow illegal immigrants to benefit from the work of your citizens. I don't think there's any ambiguity there. Moving on to the next point, she says that I acknowledge the impact and the consequences of our policy decisions in the United States, which I do. But she goes on to say that I remain loyal to the democratic globalist policy decisions that created the crises in the United States and South Africa. All right, so this is where it gets tricky. So, what are we talking about when we say globalist policies? I'm assuming she's talking about America's willingness to invade other countries for their resources, trick other nations out of their positions, just like the United States government tried to pull a fast one on Ghana today with the U.S. aid stipulation that Ghana would have to turn over uh, personal information of its citizens in order to receive that aid. And the Ghanaian president turned them down and said, hey, keep that aid. In essence, wanted to sell information, wanted to purchase Ghanaian citizen information for what, 100 some odd $1 million in an aid package? Nah, you're not going to do that. So that is a globalist policy decision. I don't support that. I don't support the United States using its financial leverage to enact things that you can't put on other people here. So I don't know what that means, that I'm remaining loyal to globalist policies. I clearly understand that America's influence in the world is what's causing not only instability in our trade markets, but instability the world over by, for instance, supporting uprising governments or uprisings in other governments to overthrow them. It's just what this country does. And if you are an American citizen, whether you support it or not, you're benefiting from that. It may seem hypocritical, but which nation is going to come and tell the United States what to do? And in the words of Nene Leakes, who gonna check them, boo? It's just not going to happen. So I don't know where we're going with that one, but I'll leave that up for another discussion because clearly I would prefer a world where countries are not influenced by larger, more powerful, militarily powerful nations, but we don't live in that world. Let's move on. Additionally, specific crises you mentioned are real events. Overburdened public institutions taking care of illegal immigrants is not a myth. Never said it was. We know it is, and it has real costs. And particularly in America, our communities are the ones that have to absorb these people, despite cultural differences and things that usually get out of hand. And I believe it's the same in South Africa. But where we draw the line is you don't put your hand on us, and we don't put our hands on you. And when an illegal immigrant in this country came into, there's a couple of videos up there, into a particular laundromat and said something to a security guard, and that security guard put hands on him. But that security guard wasn't questioning his immigration status. He put hands on him because he was being disrespected. I don't think that's happening in South Africa. I think people are going up to these foreigners because they look foreign, and because they have that animosity, they putting hands on these people. That shouldn't happen. Um, Drug and human trafficking are not myths. No, they're not. Um, the danger is you're tying illegal immigrants to all the drug and human trafficking. Any drug dealer I know knows that there's a market. So either you're saying that all the illegal immigrants, all the drug dealers are illegal immigrants, or or all of your customers are South Africans. I think when it comes to drug trafficking, it's got to have a base somewhere. And the current crime stats in South Africa says that 7% of the crimes being committed there are from these foreign nationals, the ones who are locked up. That means you got 93% of the populace from South Africa committing crimes. I think the crime focus is just another red herring. It's rage bait, just like it is in the United States, where you can vilify one group of people and say that they are the criminals. This is who we need to focus on. Don't look at who's bringing these drugs in because, hey, we know these illegal immigrants don't own these shipping magnets, don't own any airfields, but somehow these drugs keep getting into our country. You got to use your common sense on that. So, again, I am acknowledging that there are bigger problems, bigger portion of criminality is being committed not by illegal immigrants, and not to discount the crimes that are being committed, but you got a 93% crime rate, or 93% of your crimes are being committed by people who are homegrown. Displacement is not a myth. Never said it was. And I'm not treating them stuff. So, what is my agenda? And I'm going to go ahead and put a plug in it right here. My agenda is education. I think a lot of this crime talk is happening because people are broke. The immigration talk is because people are leaving their countries to go to another countries to make money because they are broke. What I try to do here, best I can in my little platform, is educate you on ways to get some legal money. I did a lot with crypto. I did a lot with just giving what information I can on ownership of and the processes involved, particularly in the United States, as far as getting your small business plan together. Not focusing on just doing nails and hair and cooking chicken wings, but some real businesses that offer services and skills that the community needs. If you got time enough to get into a march, you got time enough to plan for your future. You certainly have time to get some jobs, make a job, and save your money. What I do here is I teach computer literacy, and that's my focus. If I can get that piece of while making some money doing it, then that's what I'm going to do because it adds a service to a very computer illiterate populace in my community. And that's my agenda.